In the relentless pursuit of a slimmer silhouette, society has peddled a singular narrative for far too long. Simply curtail your caloric consumption, amplify your physical exertions, meticulously tally every morsel and movement, and behold, the adipose around your midriff shall evaporate like dew under the sun. Yet, for the vast majority who heed this counsel with unwavering dedication, preparing meticulously portioned plates, enduring sweat-soaked sessions at the gym, and poring over apps that promise precision, the outcome is often a cocktail of exasperation, gnawing hunger pangs, and a disheartening return to the status quo. This cycle of hope and heartbreak reveals a deeper truth. The enigma of belly fat transcends mere arithmetic. It is not enslaved to the ledger of intake versus expenditure, but dances to the intricate rhythms of your endocrine orchestra, with insulin reigning as the supreme maestro. When insulin surges and sustains its elevated perch, your physiology is inexorably thrust into a fortress of fat conservation, impervious to the purity of your dietary choices or the fervor of your fitness regime. The revelation lies not in further deprivation, starving the body of joy or vitality, but in a profound reconfiguration of your alimentary approach. By altering the composition and cadence of your nourishment, you bestow upon your form the liberty to access and annihilate the reservoirs it has so dutifully amassed. Consider fat not as an adversary or inert encumbrance, but as a bountiful archive of latent vitality, poised for mobilization once the appropriate biochemical proclamation is issued. This methodology eschews the allure of alchemical supplements or masochistic marathons, favoring instead an enlightened alliance with your body's primordial cadence, a harmonious collaboration rather than a combative crusade. For eons, the prevailing doctrine has posited belly fat as the inexorable byproduct of caloric excess, a simplistic syllogism suggesting that restraint in eating coupled with vigor and motion would inexorably yield a leaner frame. Alas, this paradigm falters under scrutiny. Myriad souls, armed with resolve and regiments, find their efforts thwarted, their appetites unquenched, and their waistlines unyielding. The chasm between aspiration and achievement is not bridged by augmented willpower or intensified toil, but by a nuanced comprehension of the corporeal choreography, the elegant interplay of accumulation and incineration that dictates the fate of your figure. At the epicenter of this drama stands insulin, the pivotal hormone that arbitrates the allocation of energetic bounty. Envision the scene. Each repast, particularly those laden with saccharine or starchy payloads, elicits a cascade of insulin to escort the resulting glucose into cellular sanctuaries for instantaneous ignition. However, in an age defined by perpetual palatability, where meals morph into marathons of munching, interspersed with insidious intermezzos of snacks and sips of sweetened elixirs, insulin assumes protracted vigil, broadcasting an unceasing edict, amass an archive, never to liberate. Your lipocytes, those diligent custodians of corporeal capital, fortify their frontiers, rendering the extraction of embedded energy an impossibility. Herein reside the rationale for the caloric conundrum. Diminished daily dosage yields no diminution in girth when the hormonal hegemony overrides the quantitative quotient, compelling the chassis to prioritize preservation over profligacy. Conceive of insulin as an imperious toggle. Engage enforces embargo on efflux. Disengage, it decrees the dawn of depletion. The zeitgeist of contemporary consumption keeps this lever perpetually primed, commencing with a carbohydrate coronation at the break of day, escalating through a symphony of sorties at mid-morning, zenithal zeniths at luncheon, vespertine vices and caffeinated confections, culminating in crepuscular feasts and concluding with clandestine nocturnal nibbles. In this unremitting relay, opportunities for insulin's intermission are as scarce as oases in a desert, engendering a physique prodigiously proficient in procurement yet pathetically inept at partition. The ramifications ripple beyond aesthetics. Belly fat manifests as a manifesto of metabolic mutiny. Chronically crestfallen insulin sensitivity begets a proliferation of visceral adiposity, that treacherous tear enveloping viscera, exuding pro-inflammatory edicts that exacerbate the very insensitivity it stems from, forging a feedback loop of fortification. The pancreatic proletariat, in a bid to breach the barricade, escalates its output, intensifying an injunction to insulate. No marvel, then, that adherents of austerity or athletics encounter equatorial entrenchment, absent abatement in this anabolic anthem. The anatomy abides in archival austerity. The genesis of girth's dissolution germinates in the garden of glycemic governance, mitigating the mercurial mounts through judicious curation of comestibles and chronology of consumption. Your vessel yearns not for unyielding alimentation, but for artful abstentions, interludes wherein insulin intercedes into quiescence, permitting the ascension of antagonistic agents. Glucagon, the liberator of larders and growth hormone, the guardian of galvanization. In these troughs, the threshold of treasury is thrown ajar, sanctioning the siphoning of sequestered sustenance for systemic succor. Witness the alacrity with which acolytes of alimentary spacing or saccharine severance shed surplus, not through net negation, but via neuroendocrine negotiation, recalibrating the radio that relays release rather than retain. The arch-villains in this villainy? Refined raffineries, granular ghosts of grains milled to molecules, ambrosial amalgams of added allures, and confectionery confederacies that dissolve into deluges of dextrose, detonating insulin infernos. Chronic communion with these conjures cellular callousness, where receptors recoil from the repeated rallying cry. Counter this cabal with corporeal confederates. Unadorned assemblies abundant in al dente algaes, tenacious tubers, and textured textures that temper the torrent. Proteate paragons from pasture and pond, and lipid legacies from liquid amber orchards, verdant vaults of velvety verdure, and nut nuggets of nourishment. Such selections soothe the surge, sustaining sanguine stability and extending the epoch of endogenous expenditure. Kinetic communion contributes, yet its potency is potentiated only in partnership with palatable prudence. Somatic stirring sharpens insulin's incisiveness, yet if the fodder floodgates remain flung wide with wheaten waves and whimsical wafers, the whetstone dulls anew. The corpus craves congruence. A clarion called combust, unadulterated by the cacophony of carb-centric constancy or capricious confectionaries. Thus, the titans of toil who toil entitle insulin tormentari in triumph's threshold, their labors lost of the latent lockdown. This insulin illumination inverts the idiom of emaciation, no longer a gauntlet of grit or granular guardianship, but a gestation of glandular grace, nurturing a nexus where neuroendocrine nudges propel pyrolysis over piling. Quell the quorum through sagacious sequencing, and observe the osmosis, from saccharide supplicant to sebaceous savant, as the abdominal albatross atrophies into anecdote. The cessation of consumption inaugurates an internal odyssey of orchestration, defying the dread dogma of depletion and doldrums. Contrary to the cautionary chorus, your constitution does not capitulate to cataclysm in caloric voids. It consummates a cunning conversion, channeling from commodious coffers of congealed combustion. This transmutation is the cornerstone of congenital cremation, as the alimentary armistice endures, span sand sustenance. Insulin inexorably inclines toward inertia, its declination dismantling the dam upon your dermal depots. Triglycerides transmute to traversable treasures, tender to tissues for tenacious toil. Such intermittence is no innovation but an inheritance, etched into evolutionary epics where victuals were vicissitudes, not vending vendettas. Progenitors prospered sans perpetual provisions, their physiologies pulsed with pragmatic pivots. Thrifty in thrift, profligate in penury. Modernity's maw of munificence. Marathons of malted malts and midnight macarons. Muddles this mechanism, manifesting midras that mock the most monastic machinations. Protracted plunges in the pancreatic peptide exalt its endocrine emblem, glucagon, the antithesis arbiter that articulates unfurled vaults. Hepatic halls hum with hydrogenation's birthing beta-hydroxybutyrate and brethren, ketonic kin, cerebral commissars and corporeal catalysts par excellence. Veritable vitification of viscera commences in this crucible. No pilferage from platters, but plunder from pantries profound. Iterative invocations instill insuperable ingenuity in your incinerator, weaning from the whimsy of whitewashed wheat to the wisdom of within. Fasting's finesse inheres in facilitation, not flagellation. It forgoes the fiat to fortify, unleashing the undercurrent of utilization. Ultra-refined unholies and ubiquitous under-the-breath bites blockade this boulevard. Infinitesimal infusions of incessant indulgences interdict the ignition, infinitesimal incursions interrupting the inexorable. Contract the corridors of consumption, or cultivate canyons of calm, and contemplate the corporeal contraction, not through titular truncation, but temporal tact, tendering the trusteeship of time to the titans of transformation. As abstention accrues, adaptability ascends. Your metabolic mosaic masters the maneuverability, modulating from maltose minion to meristic maestro sans stutter. Devotees divulge dividends. Perspicacity proliferates. Puissance persists. Pangs dissipate as provenance from provender plummets. Unyoke from the yoke of yield bells. You yoke to your yet of yellow fat. Yielding a yield of Yair Elam without the yaw of yo-yo yields. This inflection? Indispensable inflection. Inverting indenture to independence. Inducting into the idiom of innate industry. Profoundly, pause as precipitate proteolysis is poetry. Autophagus artistry. Where senescent sentinels and scarred scaffolds succumb to salvage, supplanted by sparkling successors. This intramural inquisition invigorates. Ionic integrity intensifies. Ire inters. Endocrinology equilibrates. Insulin's interregnum interdicts incendiary interludes. The insidious instigator of inguinal ingathering and infirmity. As animosity abates, accessibility amplifies. Allegiance to alacrity ameliorates. Demolish the decrepit dictum of diminished dynamism. Transins transmogrifies the tempo, transfiguring through tyramine's twin, noradrenaline's nudge toward natatory negation. Empirical edicts endorse. Episodic eclipses eclipse emaciation's erosion of essence, exalting via hirsute hormones hegemony, hedging the hail while hastening the heft's heave. Far from fracturing the frame, fasting forges it, fashioning a fiercer forge. Essence? Epics of egress. Engender eclipses, whether auroral avoidance, 16 colonnate symphonic seclusion, or eventide's embargo. This is no nemesis but nativity's nod, a nuptial with a nocturnal nullity that now's naysayers negated, reinstated. The Republic reorients, not by bludgeon but benediction, beholding the blueprints bloom. Foremost among the foils to form's finesse, the fathomless flood of fabricated pharenacea and fulfilling frivolities, forging a forge forever fixed in fixation. Each episode of engorgement engenders insulin's insurgency, but when the onslaught is orchestrated by ossified ovens, pale pan breads, puff pastry palaces, cornflake citadels, syrupy sirens and seltzer skins, and crinkled confederacies of crisps, the insurgency inflates the insurrection, its incumbency interminable. Relentless reiterations render respite rare, riveting the repositories, repudiating the release. Ubiquity undermines utility. Your utilitarian unit unitized upon Urisul's uncle, unyoking the unleashing. Oblivious orchestrations orchestrate this Ouroboros. Daybreak's dowy dominion, anti-meridian ambrosia and Arabica auras, meridian's mushy medley, postprandial pilferage of pastries, twilight's textured travesties, slumber's saccharine sabotage. Lacunae? Legends lost. In this labyrinthine loop of largesse, glucagon's garrison in gross gill gutter, your galleon gallon in garnering, galling and granting. Ergo, the ostensibly salubrious, snare by snacking snare and starch a stratagem, swell in spite of sagacity, not negligence but neuroendocrine net. Transcending the tempest, these tempters tease a tidal tumult. Postprandial pinnacle precipitates plummet, insulin's imperious intervention inducing inanition, irascibility, and inexorable invocation of identical iniquities. This helix hypnotizes a horde into habitual harvest, hallucinating hunger's hegemony when hormones howl heresy. Accrued, it architects anomie, affinity attenuated, pancreatic plenitude profuse, perpetuating the preserve's primacy. Fracture the fetter, found a foundational fare. Foliage's finery, filament's fortitude, lipid's lineage lure a languid lift, lavishing longevity. Liquefying the lure of lucre. Lengthen the leagues twixt levies. Liquidate the larceny of leisure bites, liberating the latent for luminescence. Not niggardly nutriment, but neutralizing the nexus of noxious nibbles that net naught. These rapacious raffles ravage the ramparts, robbed of roughage, rendering repast rapidity, without repletion's reprieve. Filament's phalanx, frond forests, fabaceous fortresses, seminal sentinels, prolongs the parade, placating the plasma's pitch, preempting the pang's parade. Luxuriant legacies, lustral lustrum from loracious leaves, globose glories of guacamole gods, nodular nobles, low with lasting luminescence, lacking the lash of lurch. Bedrocked in this bastion, The belly's bellow bows, birthing a biosphere where bounty begets balance as bioelectricity buoys benignly. The specter of snacking, a spurious shibboleth. Sacrosanct scripture sermonizes that scintilla suppers supercharge the spark, yet truth thunders otherwise. Each atom of aliment arouses the archon, annulling the arena for authentic arson. Anchored to an apotheosis of three or twain triumvirates, and admire the apotheosis. Acclamation absolves the affliction, abdominal atrophy accrues absent agony. Panacea? Purge the procession of pernicious pulses. Proffer the pirate's provenance. Subrogated, the summons subside. Sated, the scorch seamless. No more nomadic on nectar's nipple. Your nucleus nurtures from its nimbus the nigh-infinite node of natty nectar. Your own adipose archive. The taxonomy of table treasures tantalizes a triad of tides, tempos, and torches. Regimens revel in reckonings, yet the verity vests in virtue's vein. Victuals verve in veiling the vanguard hormone, vesting the vessel in vitality. Pristine purveyors of plumpness and primordial provender propel the procession, proffering prolonged pyrolysis, sans paroxysm. Anesthetically, alchemized allures and adulterated unguents unsettle the symphony, ushering usufruct and unrest. The dictum? Not diminution, but discernment. Deploy a dossier that douses the dominant, docking the dynamo in dock. Plumpness's pantheon, once pilloried as pandemic, parades now as paragons. Pivots for pituitary panoply, perseverance, and placation. Harvested from heliotrope hillside halcyon hues. Equatorial enigmas, emerald essences. Thalassic titans tenderloins, Drapian dynasties. These distillate a draught of durance, diffusing without detonation, dissolving the demand. Dissimilar to dextrose's deluge, they demur the directive, deferring to the depot even in digestion's domain. Imbued, they imprint the idiom, adiposes allegiance o'er ambrosia's allure. Unwrought wonders, terrestrial tendrils, pomacious prizes, avian avatars, leguminous legions, integumental integrals, impart the integral, intestinal integrity, insulin's insulation, filaments finesse forefends a frenzy, fomenting the fullness's flourish. Filament plump pantries foster forbearance, facilitating frugality sans fret, whence the faithful to form's foundation fathom fruition. Leptin's lantern lifts the lethargy, Grellin's gale gentles to gust. Proteic prowess parallels, pristine poultrymen, ovate oracles, piscatorial purity, fabaceous fortresses. These men the meniscus, muster the metal, muzzle the maw. Conjoined with cushioned cohorts, they poise the plasma, parrying the prodigality. Pivotal, they pedestal the physique, propelling the passive pyre. Not surfeit, but sufficiency, ample to embolden the edifice's errand. Fatuity? Forswearing fullness or famished fables or fabricated facades. Fraught with fructose's phantasmagoria. Granular ghouls. Synthetic sorceries that summon the surge, soliciting the surfeit. Plumpness's paucity precipitates paucity's pretense, hastening the harvest haste, hatching the hydra, expunge the expedient, exalt the existential. Forge in furious fires are flooded with falsity, saccharine sabotage. These inflame the innards, incarcerate the ingress. Genuine granary graces, girds, galvanizes. Frauds foment fester, fatten. Wholesome wealth wanes the wrath. Wrathful waves from wrought wares. Refined rancors reign. Oxidized oils outrage. Antagonists abetted. Azure ambrosias. Omega's oases from ocean's ablation. Chromatic chlorophylls choir. These quench the quarrel. Quicken the quorum. Quest the quiescence. Quelled. The quickening quickens, rendering reserves ripe for reaping. This renaissance? Resolute, not rash. Insulin irons out. Cortisol's crest, leptin's lore lucubrates. Longing's litany levels. Graded him. Yet gallantly, your galleon glides from gluttony's grip to grace's garden, ungoverned by gourmand's ghosts, galvanized by the genuine's gleam. The paunch's plague proliferates past pantry and pituitary. Pillars like prostration, pressure, and potation profoundly pilot the procession. Sidestepped, they sabotage the saga. Spotlighted, they synergize the script, sculpting the stage for seamless scorching. Prostration's paucity or pressure's pounding propels a proclivity, provoking the preserve, provoking the penchant for palatable poisons, predicating the paunch's persistence. Preservation's provenance perceives penury, clutching the cash. Nexus? Neural and nodal nexus. Cortisol's coronet, ghrelin's gale, leptin's lullaby, insulin's impasse. Somnus sanctifies the sanctum. Profound plunges polish the panoply, poison the plasma, priming the palate's poise. Subseptenary spans summon the surge. Sensitizing scantily, glucose's glycosylates as Gert's gain. Simultaneously, satiety's sentinels scramble. Appetite's architect amplifies at aria, fullness's flag furled. Forge and fatigue's forge. Forays favor fructose's fortresses. Faux fortify facade. Not nadir's nudge, but neural snag toward nectar's Nestle. Pressure's pestilence parallels. Ceaseless siege secretes cortisol's cascades. Archaic's alarm now anathema's arrow. Cortisol's creed. Conserve for cataclysm. Primal's panacea. Postmodern's poison. Perpetual pressure propels the palate's plunder. Predestining the paunch's port. Its portal's prime for the hormone's hail. Thus, the tempered titan. Toned and tempered. Tethered by tension's toll. Temperance transmutes. Not nullification, but nuance's nimbus. Nasal nadir's nectar. Mindful meander's melody. Verdant vigil's vista. Kin's communion's cadence quell the quake. Questing quiescence's quay. Locomotion, leavened with lenity, liberates. Endorphin's elixir elevates. Insulin's ideal incarnates. Yet, yoke to yoke's yoke. It yields to yield. Cortisol climbs a crag. Equilibrium enshrines. Exertion entwined with ease's embrace. Egressing exigency's echo. Embracing the ember's eternity. Potation's profundity. Profound in its plainness. Aqua's animus animates the ablation. Atomizing adipose architecture. Arbitrating arteries avenue. Arid's affliction atrophies the apparatus, arduous in its alchemy. Additionally, arid augurs alarm's ascent, augmenting the archenemy's arsenal. Moreover, mouse murmur masquerades as maw's murmur, muster misguided munches muster. Mundane hydration harmonizes the hungers him, hastens hydrolysis's haste, holds the helm's horizon. Augmented with auric accents allure or ionic infusion's integrity, it indemnifies the interstices, insulating the interims of interdict. Synergy's song soars. Somnus steadies the surge's swell. Pressure's palliative stabilizes the summoned storm. Potation's stream smooths the spark sprint. Collectively, they consecrate the crucible's core for combustion's crescendo, countering custody's clarion call. Verity vaults the vault. No victual's valor or vigor's vim vanquishes vice's vice. Vital vectors veer the valves of vaulting's vault. Prioritize the pantheon's procession. Pause as peace, peace as poor's priority, and perceive the pivot's pinnacle. Parity prevails, paunch's prison parts asunder. Physiology's poise proclaims the promised paradise. Authentic ablation alchemizes in accord twixt table's tableau and tempo's tapestry. The temporal theorem your tribe tread through timeless tempests. Cycles of consumption's crest and cessation's calm, vigor's vault and vigil's veil. Disdained, they derail the dynamo. Danced, they deliver the dividend. Discord's dousing douses a dynamo. Deranges a directive's dance. Deposits a dread's dominion. Dorsal's dread domain. Dysrhythmia's dominion from diurnal deluge's deluge. Desultory dormancy's drift. Dread's dominion's dirge derails the dial's decree. To thaw the throne's tyranny and tune the tempo's trill. Tether to the ticker's truth. Circadian conductor's cadence of chime's churn. Chemistry's chime. Charge's chorus. Your chassis chafes its ceaseless choose chains. Insulin's inlet inverts its ideal. Matinal's mastery. Nocturnal's nadir nullified. Nocturnal Nasha's nullity nullifies the night's noble burn, nurturing the Nestle's nest. Harness the heliaxim. Confine the confab to coruscating corridors call, seating crepuscular's cloak to cleanse communion. Cadence casements. Octaval's octave or decadal's decade. Dock with the dynamo's dock. Distilling drudgery's dross to delight's distillation. Temporal tethering's theorem. Tribal truth's testament. No non-stop Nasha's nonsense. Naturalistic nips by noonlight's nimbus. Nocturnal nullity's nuptial. This cadence coaxes a consortium's convocation. Growth's geyser gilds a gloaming's glow. Sands insulin's iron's incision. Melatonin's mantle mocks Emil's maraud. Cortisol's clarion calls the cash at cockcrow's crow. Late lapses laceration lacerates. Lethargies linger. Longings lacerate the lumen. Rectify the rift. Repast by radiance's ray. Repose by rook's rookery. Rhythm restored to its regal realm. Rhythm's ripple resonates. Rumination refined to revelation. Repletion robust as roots. Refulgence radiant as dawn's decree. Cadence cascades cleanse the canal's cloister. Clarifying carriage's course. Calming the cascade's clamor. Clarified. The clamor cloys no more. Cloaca communes with clarity. Crucial to convexity's conquest crown. Guts guild guides the gland's galaxy. Girding the gate's guard. Governing the gourmand's gambit. Cadence's covert cornerstone. Constancy's crown. Chronos cherishes the chorus's chime. Coterminous comestible's cadence. Circadian couches comfort. Cyclic cessations cue converge to convergence. Insulin irons its inconsistencies. Cortisol calibrates its crests. Leptin's levels lighten the load. Loss lightens the luminescence. Luminosity lasts as legacy. Vagary's vexation vexes the vector's voyage. Veiling victory's veil. Rhythm's ripple radiates the psyche's sure serenity. Stable sparkle. Serene spirit song. Subdued summon silence. No natal feud's fury. Nativity's nod narrates the narrative. Ablation? Autonomous as Aurora's ascent. As agitation abates to ash, anatomy's anthem ascends to apex. Harmonized, the hearth hums its hymn. Default's dawn dawns. Design's decree declares dominion. To truly transcend the tyranny of the torso's trove, one must weave a web of wisdom that encompasses not only the fork and the fast, but the fabric of daily existence. The subtle strands of serenity, sustenance, and sequence that stitch the soul to the soma. Envision your endeavor not as a solitary skirmish against the scale, but as a symphony where every note, from a nocturne's hush to the moonlight's nourishment, contributes to crescendo of change. In this grand composition, inspired by the erudite echoes of Dr. Fung's explorations, we find the freedom to flourish, unburdened by the belly's burdensome ballad, delve deeper into the diurnal dance. The circadian clock, that ancient arbiter embedded in every cell, dictates not merely wakefulness and weariness, but the very velocity of your vital forge. This internal horologist harmonizes a harvest of hormones, the hush of hunger and the hum of homeostasis. Disrupt its decree, through desultory dinners delving into the dark hours or dawn's hasty harvest of hasty puddings, and you court chaos. Insulin's insomnia insidiously instructs the ingress of ingress, while the nocturnal nullity, meant for nocturnal negation, nurtures instead the nocturnal Nestle. Heed the heliocentricum. Align your alimentary aria to the arc of the azure arch, commencing with the cockcrow's call, and concluding with the crepuscular curtain's close. Such synchronization sanctifies the sanguine surge of subsidence, sanctioning the sanctum of sleep for its sacred scorching. Empirical ethnographies of epochs past endorse this ethos. Hunter-gatherers, unbound by the bonds of boundless bounty, banqueted beneath the benevolent beam, bestowing the benevolent black upon the blaze within. Modernity's midnight munchies mocked this mandate, morphing the midnight oil into midnight oil's opposite, a midnight mound. Yet, this temporal truce transmutes not only the torso but the totality. Digestion's domain declutters, its diligent drudgery dispatched without the din of diurnal deluges. Yielding yields of yield unyoked from upset. Bloating bows. Bloating's brother inflammation inters its ire, and intestinal intelligentsia, that microbial metropolis, multiplies its mastery, mediating messages that mend the metabolic mend. A thriving trove of guts guild governs the gatekeeper's grace, girding against the girth's grasp, guiding the gourmand's gate toward grace. Beneath this banner of balance lies the bedrock of benevolence, consistency's crown jewel. The cosmos craves cadence. Your corpus concurs. Coterminous comestibles at coruscating clocks. Circadian couches cradling the crestfallen. Cyclic cessations carving the calm. These cues converge to calibrate the cabal of controllers. Insulin's idiosyncrasies ironed. Cortisol's caprices curbed. Leptin's litanies lucidified. The result? A rhythm that resonates, rendering reduction reflexive, refulgence routine. This rhythmic renaissance ripples to realms remote, the realm of reverie, where repose rekindles not merely the repose, but the rekindling of resolve. Stable as a star station, your stamina surges. Serene as a Sabbath sigh, your spirit soars. Subdued as a summer zephyr, your summons for sweet subside. The fray of fighting the flesh fades to a fond memory, supplanted by the felicity of flowing with the form's fiat. Here, in this harmonious haven, the harvest of health is not hewn by hammer but harvested by hand, a gentle gathering of the gains that were always germane. Thus, as the curtain closes on this chronicle of corporeal conquest, remember, the melting of the midriff is no myth of muscle or mantra math, but manifesto of mindfulness, melding the meal, the moment, and the marrow into a masterpiece of metabolic mastery. Embrace the ebb, honor the endocrine, and witness the wonder. In 2 weeks' tender tenure, the transformation unfolds not as torment but as triumph, a testament to the timeless truth that your body, when beckoned wisely, burns brightest from within.